आज की ताज़ा खबर। बेंगलुरु में रहने वाले लू और अमेरिका में रहने वाले सिड आपसे कुछ बात करना चाहते हैं। संगीतकार राजेश के साथ आपका स्वागत है लूसिड में।
What's going on, people? I'm Lou, and we are in Lucid. This time we have another amazing guest with us here today. First of all, it's been a long time since I saw you guys. I have not been able to do a podcast because of certain commitments in my own college life, and it's been really, really hard. And our guest today will attest to that, I'm sure.
Oh yes, for sure.
So, a quick introduction about our guest. So, our guest here today is Ajay Jayaram. He's an ace shuttler. Let me just put it that way. He has won the SEC International, the Dutch Open, Vietnam Open, Korean Open, and he has a career best ranking of number 13 in the world. To put that into perspective, there are over 220 million people who play badminton in the world. This is a stat that I, went and Googled in, and my man just placed himself number 13, and that's crazy. That's just crazy. And yeah, well, I mean, he's very, very famous, and it's great to have you on the podcast, Ajay. Thank you.
Thanks, Aditya. Thanks. That's a fairly sweet introduction. Thank you for that.
All right. So, first of all, how has your 4 months been in ISB? And I'm really glad to have you as
Oh,
my
I think
batchmate, by the way.
yeah. I mean, likewise, Aditya. But I think it's been extremely sort of challenging and very different from what I've been, used to prior to this. But I think somewhere I chose this, and I'm largely, I think, enjoying at least, a good chunk of it. It's challenging, like I said, and it's hectic and it's very new.
Hmm.
But I think it's fun. It's been
That's
pretty good 3 4 months so
that's
far.
great. Great. Awesome. So, let's just dig right into it. I have like a laundry list of questions that I have for you. So we'll just get through one by one, possibly. So you lived a large chunk of your life in Mumbai, probably even your more younger days. So, can you take us through your journey there? What was it like when you first discovered that you have a passion for this sport?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, like you said, I'm from Bombay, and my dad was a very keen sort of sports enthusiast. He never played any sport professionally, but he would play, quite a few sports, at club level, and he was quite good at it. And growing up, I think I used to play a lot of games with him in the colony, in the building, and he was very actively involved in that sense. And I think I was 6 or 7, and he wanted me to learn a sport basically formally. And we were just sort of, I mean, he was just sort of contemplating which one. There was, football coaching happening in my school.
Hmm.
There was tennis coaching, tennis and badminton coaching in Chembu Gymkhana. That's where I'm from, Chembu.
Okay.
And that was just like about 50, 100 meters away from my place. So, yeah, and I think it just made sense for me to, for him to put me into the badminton coaching thing that was happening there, just logistically and everything. And I think once I started, I sort of picked it up fairly quickly.
Okay.
And I think, this must have been when I was 7, and then later that same year, I think uh, he enrolled me in a tournament, in a local under 10 tournament, and I remember uh, I lost my first match very badly, and as it happens, then I think I was quite a competitive kid, and every time I would lose, I would end up sort of just like bursting into tears and crying a lot. So the same thing happened, and I think I lost a lot of matches initially, and I've cried a lot in that sense. But I think, like I said, I picked it up fairly quickly, and within a year or two, I started, winning local under 10, Mumbai level tournaments. And I think, over the period of time, it sort of just steadily grew from there.
So you think you would have done this great in any other sport if your dad just chose to put you in football instead of badminton?
Honestly, that's very hard to say. I mean, I think I love playing any
Okay.
sport in that sense, but I think badminton in many ways was apt for me. I think, physically and skill wise, and even I think when you talk about internationally how well India is doing, I think badminton is one sport where with the right amount of sort of push or fitness that if you're focused on. I think it really sort of blends in with the Indian style of the skill levels or the general aptitude for badminton. I think it's quite a good sport for Indians. So in that sense, it's hard to say something like football, which is so competitive and probably tough for an Indian, at least right now in the current scenario to make it big. So in that sense, I'm happy that the sport he chose was badminton.
Can you explain this thing that you're talking about? This the right skill set for the Indian kind of persona.
Sure. So I believe, badminton is a sport which has a combination of a lot of elements. So obviously, in terms of fitness, it's a very fitness heavy sport. It might not be the longest sport, like let's say a tennis that goes on for 3 4 hours, but it probably goes on for an hour or so, and that becomes an extremely explosive and intense sort of 1 hour.
Correct.
But apart from the fitness part, I think badminton also requires a lot of skill and finesse. I think there's a lot of deft and soft sort of touch that you need to have. And I believe Indians are very skilled in that sense. We have a lot of what you would call deception,
Hmm.
which really sort of helps on court. And even if you look at all the players of the past, like Prakash sir, Prakash Padukone, Gopi sir, Gopi Chand, they've all had these mix of beautiful skill play, and of course they worked a lot on their fitness. So I think if that can be worked upon Indians, and it's probably seen in the last decade or so where Indians have really sort of thrived on the international scene. So I guess that's what I meant
Okay,
by that.
great, great. So, I mean, coming to the fact that, you said that Indians are like kind of have this niche for badminton, but then, I mean, the general public doesn't quite see it that way. I mean, in terms of the popularity of the sport, I mean, today things are changing, but coming to a time when you first began, um, what was it like to convince your parents, I guess? I mean, I'm just assuming directly that you had to convince them that this is the path that you had to take. Because more often than not, it's either do an engineering or do become a doctor. So, what are your thoughts on that? Did you have to convince?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a valid question. So I think growing up, I think even I sort of had an aptitude for academics, and uh, maybe sometime around, when I was 14, 15, I was doing well, on the at the national level, either under 13 or under 16. I was winning a few, all India tournaments in my age group. So there was obviously, and obviously for me, as a kid, you obviously dream big, and you obviously want to, take it up professionally. And there might not always be a very, uh, a practical outlook or approach, for a kid. And in that sense, my parents obviously had that concern. And though I think I attribute everything to my, both my mom and dad for, where I reached in badminton. They've been through and through my support, right from the day I picked up the racket. But even they were concerned when I was, in my 10th, and I had to choose a stream. And they also saw my aptitude, and they felt, and like you said, at that point badminton wasn't this big, and there were far more uncertainties then. So they were skeptical, and they did want me. I mean, they were a little, sort of, they didn't know which way to sort of, they didn't know which was right. And then, and I took up science after my 10th because, probably they wanted me to do, an engineering thing. And I would say I probably had more of an aptitude for that also. But I took up science after my 10th, and but I think when I was like 16 or 17 before my 12th, I sort of knew that, badminton was what I was going to do. And there was no two ways
Nice.
about it. And I think that when that conviction sort of came from within, and I managed to convey that to them, I think they were pretty much on board. There wasn't really that much of convincing or something that I had to do. And I think since then, I switched to BCom because, that would involve, me having to attend college less,
Mm,
and wouldn't have to, any science related field would have involved a lot of practicals, and it would have been a little hard to sort of balance out both. So, yeah, after that, I switched to BCom, and I moved to Bangalore. So I think after that there wasn't any looking back. It was just trying to go forward and make it reach my
nice.
potential. So yeah, I think I'm very grateful that way to my parents. To it's a little hard for the for someone from a conventional background to sort of uh, be open to that idea, especially talking about what maybe 15 years ago. So yeah, I'm quite thankful for them.
That's amazing. So let's go back. Let's go to your Bangalore days. Okay. um,
Yeah.
what was like when did you see that now your career is actually taking off in badminton? When did that happen?
Yeah, I think post my 12th, I moved to Bangalore to train with, at the Prakash Padukone Academy. And that was, I think, a big, big change for me because that until then I was playing, at the junior level, junior national level. I played a couple of international tournaments in the junior level, junior as in under 19. And, though I did reasonably well, um, when I went to Bangalore, I got to play against the top people
Hmm.
in the country, like former Olympian Anup Sridhar, who eventually became my coach as well, Anup Sridhar, and Arvind Bhatt, and there were at least like 10, 12, the senior batch then who were really good. And the moment I sort of started practicing with them, my entire sort of the level shift, literally, I could say, that happened in my game. And I realized that the junior whatever you've seen isn't everything, and it's a whole new sort of competitive level out there. So I think that exposure really changed things a lot for me, and that sort of also reflected in the tournaments because we played. I remember a senior All India tournament within maybe 6 months of me moving to Bangalore. And I ended up doing really well where I beat a couple of, top ranked Indian players. And that was like a big sort of boost for me, confidence wise. And it sort of made me realize that I could actually, do something now in the sport.
Great, great.
So yeah,
Can you tell
yeah.
us a bit about your training regimes? What was a day in the life of Ajay Jayaram at the age of say 18?
So I think, like everyone else, when you're 18, 19, there's a lot of focus on, getting fitter. And I think that idea of fitness sort of started, the importance of fitness started, um, people started to get to know about the importance of fitness around
Mm-hmm.
that time. I mean, there was always a little focus, but I think there was, knowledge sort of became more around that time. And 18, yes, I think there was a lot of focus on fitness, on gym training, on running, and that combined, of course, with the rigorous on-court practice. So I think I would spend about 5 to 6 hours a
Wow.
day on put together, but that would sort of be split into 2 or 3 sessions. So probably start. I remember at that point when I moved to Bangalore, we would have this this 6 o'clock
Hmm.
training where we would go to the stadium and run. I mean, different drills of running at least. And then we would play either in the afternoon or have 2 sessions of playing or playing in a gym. So it would be 2 to 3 sessions and would be fairly intense. But yeah, I think that's what pays off in the
Right,
end.
right. That's great. So, what was your nutrition like? Because 5, 6 hours a day, or even more, I guess. So, did you have to like eat a lot of stuff, proteins? What was there?
Yeah, I mean, to that extent, I think like I said, the resources available or the knowledge available was still
Hmm.
limited at that point. And personally, I don't think while I would have some broad plan of what to eat, it wasn't that
Got it.
focused or that rigid or that sort of regimen that I followed. So yeah, I mean, looking back, maybe that was something I could have worked on better. But yeah, it is what it is.
I'm making you think about a few things. Maybe I don't know. No, but this is
Yes, for
amazing.
sure.
Amazing the fact that I do understand. I mean, I think the nutrition scene really happened picked up only very recently. So yeah, this is great.
True.
So you have played against, like you said, the top of the top, and even after that in your career, you have. I mean, today's world number one, Victor Alex, and you've even beaten him, which I find to be amazing. But so, what do you learn from the people that you play against on and off the court? Were there some learnings through the meetings that you have?
Oh, definitely. I think I've been fortunate to play against some of the best players in the world, including Victor Axelsen, and I think Victor Axelsen himself is such a wonderful example of what um, discipline and sort of that belief can take you. And I've been, I think I've played some good matches against him. Won a few, lost a few, and I think today, he's been so sort of um, disciplined and very regimented in the way he follows his plan every day, and that has really taken
Hmm.
him where he is today. It just didn't happen. This world number one that he's able to it's been a very structured and a very and I remember because he was sort of my junior when I started, and even from his young days I've always seen that attitude, and there was a no nonsense attitude throughout. And yeah, I mean, it's great to see him do as well as he's doing today, because even a few years back he was struggling against a couple of players. He was there world number two. He won some big tournaments, but it just wasn't enough for him. He wanted to keep pushing, and he now in the last couple of years he's actually dominated that, and he's beaten those two players who were always a problem for him. So I think, and it's not just him. I think there were tons of other players
Hmm.
like Lee Chong Wei, who again who's been such an inspiration for me. Growing up, and I got to again play with him, tons of times. I've come close to beating him, but never got to actually beat him. But I think that shows
Right.
volumes. I mean, he's at his peak. I think he's very few players have actually beaten him, and that again shows volume of what levels of fitness and dedication he brings to his game, and him and Lindan and tons of other players. So that way, I'd say I've been
Right.
very lucky.
So, I mean, a quick anecdote about my uncle. Okay, he really loves the sport, and he actually he started
Oh,
playing
nice.
it when he was like around 45 or something, and
Oh,
so he
lovely,
keeps
lovely.
watching these YouTube videos of Lee Chongwei,
Hmm.
Lin Dan, and all these guys, really
Oh, wow.
doing their shots, the
Yeah.
trick shots, all of that, and then he'll have a
Yeah.
meeting going on, and then like in the 5 minute break, he'll just go through those, and that's when I kind of got interested
Wow.
in the sport a bit a year back, and then when I started having a look at these videos, which
Oh,
is
nice.
super interesting, and the fact that you've seen these guys, you played against them, and then you had this ability to like kind of actually have one-on-one discussions with them is very, I mean, for me personally, having seen like my uncle and I like watch those YouTube videos, feels really awesome to hear that from you.
Hmm.
Right.
Nice,
So
nice.
I think the next questions that I want to kind of focus on is your mental state of mind throughout your career progression. So, what I mean by that is when you do have your big wins or when you do have your big losses, right, in the sport, does it affect your personal relationships in your circle? And does it change the way? So, after you reached, world number 13, did it change the way you had to kind of approach your style of practicing, or what happened when you got famous? I think these are some of the questions.
Uh, I mean, so I think one thing that sport teaches you is, um, I think there's a lot of volatility in terms of how much you face
Mm-hmm.
defeat and wins, right? In the sense that literally every match takes you through that entire, turmoil of emotions. You're you're anxious and tense before every match, and post a match, if you win, you could be like extremely elated or extremely disappointed. And I think that cycle of emotions, as you play more and more matches, more and more tournaments, I think that balance somewhere comes where you sort of accept defeats for what they are. I mean, it still hurts, um, like a bitch, for lack of a better word. But I think um, it you sort of get back sooner over time, and so you lose, but you're okay, and then you practice again. There's another tournament to play the following week. So I think that really teaches you a lot about, somewhere how insignificant or how passing every single match or tournament is truly is, because there's always something, to the next week or next month. In that sense, I think, and your second question, I mean, I don't know, the fame part, because I mean, let's face it, badminton isn't that popular a sport. I mean, it's getting more now, but yeah, I think it felt great to be in the top 20, in the top 15 in the world. I remember at some point, when I was struggling with, being, when I was 80 or 90 in the world, and I was sort of, wondering whether I would ever break into the top 50, because yeah, obviously the competition is intense, and you're playing matches, you're giving your, everything, but somewhere it doesn't click. But then I think, yeah, I think I got lucky in the sense that I managed to come across this wonderful coach who sort of transformed me in the next, in the 5, 6 years that I trained with him. And I managed to get into the, top 50, top 30, and top 20. And, that journey has been, very special. Maybe when I was there, when I had actually reached there, uh, I don't think you sort of look at it that way. I mean, you're obviously happy, but somewhere the goal is always to sort of climb higher. But going, in hindsight, that feels, special. And yeah,
Right.
I think if I could
Nice,
sum it
nice,
up that
nice.
way. But yeah.
So, did the people around you, I mean, your close family and your close relationships, did they have issues given the fact that you had to keep traveling, you had to do a lot of these things away from them? Was that ever a problem?
Uh, I mean, I don't think, I mean, I think all, family and friends, I mean, I've been in this, it wasn't a sudden sort
Hmm.
of jump that I
Hmm.
started traveling, it has been a gradual thing, and it's been from a young age. So I think it's that way. I think at least my family, I think, never sort of gave it away in that sense where it was hard or anything. But for me personally, I think at some point it sort of did get to me, this constant traveling and, every week you're sort of packing your bags and um, leaving for the new place, and then you play hectic tournaments, you come back, and then you again leave, and then I'm training in Bangalore. So yeah, there were times where I wanted to sort of just take a break, and uh, it was getting very tiring and exhausting, but I think somewhere I mean that this is what you've chosen to do, and so and I mean you end up as a sportsman, I think you end up getting breaks in the form of injuries. That's probably the only good part about it, is that you get to spend time with people you love. But yeah, apart from that, it's a challenging life, but it has its perks. There's a lot of you do have a lot of fun in that sense. But yeah, to answer your question, yeah, it's
Okay,
it's not always
nice.
easy.
So you're not a consulting aspirant, I'm
No.
gonna assume from from. Oh,
I
okay,
might
might
be,
be.
I might be though. I mean that the traveling will
Okay.
still be lesser than the
Okay,
badminton
great, great.
professional
I
for
mean,
sure.
it's great that you brought up injuries because my next set of questions was going there. Um, you've in your career you had to go through like a lot of phases with injuries. Can you take us through those phases?
Yeah, sure. So, I think one of the biggest hurdles that, any athlete faces are injuries. And to a large extent, that's sort of unavoidable. But I think it was unfortunate that, growing up, when I was 17 or 18, the information or the knowledge that we had in terms of, how to, uh, I mean, injuries it's not something that you address, after you get injured. It's something that is a process that needs to be started at a young age,
Mhm.
where you're focusing on, not just fitness, but also recovery, because, bad sort of habits in terms of how you manage your post-practice, recovery sessions can lead to sort of, cumulative build-up in terms of, your joints wearing out faster. So I think, that sort of knowledge was lacking, and we would just sort of push ourselves, more and more, in the, trying to just get better and fitter. And that sort of, takes its toll. And I mean, I'm glad I could, sustain till, the age of 34 in that sense. But I think I did face a lot of injuries along the way. In 2014, I tore my cartilage in the shoulder and had to undergo a surgery. And again in 2017 or 18, I had a sort of serious hamstring issue, and that again took a good chunk of 8 9 months out of badminton. And small injuries are fine, and that's unavoidable. And couple of weeks, up to a month, it's fine, and it's easier to get back. But the moment you have a break, about 6 months or more, it just becomes that much harder to get back. And beyond just you're physically getting fit again, I would say that is still the relatively easier part. But I think just what happens in terms of losing out on 6 months is quite huge, because if you, like in 2014, I was prior to the injury, I was roughly, I think, 20 to 25 in the world. And after losing out in the 6 months, I think I was pushed out of the top 100. And so again, sort of starting from square one becomes very hard. But I think fortunately back then in 2014, I managed to do well reasonably quickly after the injury. And I remember, in fact, I think a couple of months after I got back, I managed to win my first sort of, I would say, reasonably big international tournament, the Dutch Open. That was the first time I won the Dutch Open in 2014. And that comeback for me was sort of great. But again, I think in 2000, 18, after the hamstring injury, that was when I was, top 15 in the world. And the entire sort of 2000 later half of 2017, I was sort of plagued by this, hamstring. I couldn't play, and then after that, it was a complete stop for about 6, 7 months. And then when I got back, getting back into the ranking was so hard. And I got back, to I think top 50, and then there was another, injury after that, and then again I had to stay off. So I think that really takes a toll on you. I would say mentally more than physically, to be honest, because when you're getting back, you sort of have this idea, of where you were, but you're just not there yet, and it in sort of, that sort of you have to be very persistent and patient in that sense to, allow yourself that time to settle back in and get back in. I mean, it happens, but it takes its time. So, that's sort of, mentally you need to sort of bring that balance out where you're pushing yourself, but just, sort of enough so that you don't really sort of, burn yourself out mentally. So yeah, it's always very
So
challenging.
how did you deal with this? I mean, it sounds. I mean, seriously, when you say it this way, it sounds really really rough. Um, what did you do to deal with this?
So one thing is, I think when you're in that break, like I'd mentioned before, it's nice to sort of, get that time away from, badminton and spend time with your family. I think that was very good for me, on both occasions. Uh, so I think that is one positive you can take, and you have that sort of support system at home that really helps. And I thankfully had that. But apart from that, I think once you get back, it's sort of on you. I mean, it's your sort of hunger and sort of willpower to sustain. And I think um, I mean in 2014 when I got back from the shoulder surgery, it also sort of there's a lot of um, sort of it plays on your mind because you're quite cautious. You always fearful that the thing might again sort of tear. So I think just allowing yourself to gradually get there without sort of being too pushy, so to say, helps. And I think I've done that all right. And by the end of the day, it's you. I think it's your conviction and your belief that of believing that you can get there despite that setback. And I think that persistence and that resilience is what sort of eventually takes you there.
Yeah, that's amazing. Um, I think my next set of questions is about something that you had mentioned in one of your interviews that I had read, um, which is you mentioned this. I have had to overcome numerous hurdles, including a string of injuries and a flawed system to carve my own unique path to reach the pinnacle of world badminton. What is this flawed system that you're talking about?
I mean, there's so many. I think in that sense, badminton is still a very sort of I would say amateur or raw sport. While the competition and the level of the level of game is really high. I think the way it's managed, even at an international level, is very amateur and very flawed, like I said. So simple things. So if you look at tennis, I think every player is directly affiliated to the ATP or the WTA, and they are responsible for the players. And but in badminton, it's a far more bureaucratic system where you need to go through your association for everything. So even if it's something as simple as sending your entries for the tournament, it has to be sent to the national association, and they need to forward it to the BWF, that's the World Federation. So that sort of gives them this sort of unfair power, and which they sort of exercise on many occasions unnecessarily. So it becomes very difficult, for the player who honestly he or she just wants to, play and sort of do their best. But this sort of political thing that sort of gets, intertwined in this whole thing sort of really sets you back a lot. And I think I faced a lot I remember I think this was again in 2017 when I was India's highest ranked player. I think I was again top 20. And I was, I think I played this tournament in Malaysia, and the following week there was a tournament in India, and the organizers expect all the top players to play in the tournament. However, I sort of got injured in Malaysia, and I wasn't fit enough to play this tournament. So I accordingly informed, the association and the organizer saying that, I'm not fit, I'm injured. I even sent a doctor's certificate because I mean, they said send it. I was like, okay, send it. And I pulled out from that tournament. And I thought, everything was fine. But as it turns out, the then president of the association got extremely pissed off that I didn't play. And a month and a half later, there were this big European circuit that was, going to happen. It was German Open, All England, which is, the biggest tournament in the circuit, and the Swiss Open. And I'd sent my entry for, all the three tournaments, and they had sent it then. And, I think maybe 2, 3 weeks prior to that, someone, comes and tells me, you pulled out of the German Open. I mean, what happened? And I was like, no, I didn't. I mean, what's this? And I said, your name was there in the withdrawed list. I was like, damn, what is this? Then I went and checked online, and my name was withdrawn from the German Open, even though I hadn't sent anything. And at that point, it didn't even hit me that, this was, sort of done just because I had, pulled out of that tournament in India. And I was wondering, and then it was so sort of, I would say, pathetic because I had to literally sort of, and this was done as India's highest ranked player. I had to sit literally beg and plead and say sorry for something. Honestly, that wasn't my fault at all. And I had to make sure that they didn't withdraw my entry from the All England because that would have literally been heartbreaking. So yeah, I mean, something as basic as this, and the other part is, I mean, you could always argue that, why don't you, take it up and go to the press but then it just becomes that much more of a hassle, and because then you're constantly in this sort of battle with the association, and for a person like me, I like to have sort of, a peaceful sort of, what do you
Compromise.
say? Uh, I mean, yeah, I mean, I like to have, I'm not someone who likes
Right.
confrontation that much. I like that sort of piece, and it just didn't make sense to me. So yeah, it's quite sad in that sense. And uh, I thought it was just India, but there was a recent instance where a Malaysian top player, and he's I think world number 2 or 3, Lee Zijia, who just wanted to opt out of the national training system in Malaysia and train on his own, have his own coach, and participate on basically, I mean, nothing. All he asked was, I mean, he didn't ask anything if that actually, he just wanted to opt out of the, the national training center. And just for this, Malaysia imposed a 2 year ban on him. And that was just, to me, again, outrageous. And he, again, I think in some way had to apologize. And I think he's back in the national center now. But what I'm trying to get at is that's the sort of power these national associations hold just because, it's not, I mean, it's a bureaucratic system, a particular, and that's what I mean by, a flawed system. And I think, yeah, I think badminton could do with a lot of
Right,
change in that
right, and I
sense.
think a lot of these Olympic sports fall into this category. I mean, even recently with table tennis, Manika Batra had a very similar situation that you mentioned about the Malaysian player. That she had her own coach,
Yes.
and that there was a fallout there, and now they're having problems with signing up for CWG. Yeah, I mean, this is very yeah. I mean, it's very important to discuss, and I think. Yeah.
True.
Has anyone been able to do anything about this, or Nothing has been, taken forward like in.
I mean, you had players who sort of spoken up, against, and I mean, I admire them for that. But yeah, I mean,
There's only
it's
so much
just
you can do.
it's I would say, yeah, there's only so much, and I think you need a bigger
Right.
shift in that sense. I mean, ideally, I think you would require, all the top players to sort of come together, and the sort of players union to be a little more
Mhm.
stronger in that sense. But it's very hard to sort of form that unity because uh, it's not all the players who sort of
Mhm.
face discrimination, and the ones who don't would be very hesitant to sort of, you know, join hands in that sense because it would just hamper, their progress. So yeah, it's a tricky situation in that sense.
So, have you ever thought of leaving India and then going and playing abroad? Because a lot of people do that in other sports like cricket, etc. Has that thought ever crossed your mind, given these political parts of the sport here?
Yeah, it happens even in badminton. I mean, a lot of Indians do leave, but for some reason, I don't think that really appealed to me. I mean, I don't know. I think I just wanted to play for India in that sense. But yeah, that I never even sort of considered that, at least not seriously. So
I guess,
yeah.
but the Indian sports scene is gonna have to deal with this if they want good players to continue to stay here. They have to find a good solution. Yep. Um,
Yeah, definitely. I think that's important, and especially with badminton in the last few years, it's there's been a surge of the
mhm.
number of players who've been playing. I mean, recently what I heard was a junior national level tournament, which was under 15 and under 17 had an entry at what 4,000 odd entries, which I find is just insane how popular the sport has got over the last 5-6 years. And it's I think even more important that India forms a system sort of that can handle this sort of surge, because I think if we can have that system, and if we can there's obviously a large pool of talent. I mean, if you have 4,000 entries, there is going to be a large pool of talent that do well in at the international level. So I think handling this and a fair and a robust system is definitely
Right,
very
right.
important.
So, Ajay, what did you feel when your juniors won the Thomas Cup recently? What was your feeling?
Oh, that was amazing. I mean, I played Thomas Cup on multiple occasions, and as a country, I think India was always very good in the singles event.
Mhm.
By very good, I mean, like, we had singles players throughout who were capable of beating the best in the world. But we always struggled a lot in doubles. And, I did hope, for India to win the Thomas Cup, but I somewhere felt that this would probably happen, 5-6 years or maybe 10 years down the line, because coming together, for the current team, I mean, they're all exceptional, but I never expected them to, all play so well on the same day for the entire week. I mean, and that was spectacular. And I think, I mean, it would be hard to just praise a couple of players. I think the entire team did, played, beyond, the expectations. And I mean, it's still sort of hard to digest that India is actually world champion as a team uh, in badminton. So I think it's special. And but I think at least the in women's you had Saina and Sindhu who've done exceedingly well. But it's been just the two of them who sort of at least until now, who've sort of been the uh, sort of the flag bearers for the sport. But when it comes to men's, I think we've had, we've seen a rise in the number of players who've done well. In 2015, there were five of us in the men's singles alone who were in the top 20 in the world. So there has been, and then you had Shrikant Kidambi, who's reached the world number one, who won four big tournaments in a year. So there have been, and then Sai Praneeth who won a world championship medal. So I think we've done very well, but this entire thing of coming together as a team and winning the Thomas Cup was very, very special. And I think India should definitely sort of capitalize and, build on this. I mean, Indians were sort of uh, were considered a threat in the international scene, and over the last 10 years, I think Indians do get a lot of respect now for every tournament that we go. But this just pushes, uh, you know, um, our position to a whole new
Awesome.
level.
Awesome. So, Ajay, when did you decide that you gotta pack your bags now and have a new thought of what your future needs to be? When did that decision take place?
So, I think, again, this goes back to a bit of, injury related issues. I think in 2018, when I got injured, I got back and then again got injured. And I think 2019, I struggled a lot, but I think I sort of did well towards the end of the year and in 2020 beginning, where, I played the Spanish Masters semifinals where I beat Srikanth, and, I finally felt like I was getting my flow back. And I think at that time I was probably 50 or 60 ranked in the world. But I think to sustain, career in badminton, at least presently, it's a little hard to sort of, get funds because if you're not in the top 30 or top 20 in the world, you end up, spending on all your tournaments abroad, and it just becomes very hard to sustain. And right when I felt like I was doing well, COVID hit. And then that just, I mean, initially I was still sort of motivated and I thought, okay, this will pass and I'll sort of get back. But it just, as time passed, it just became harder and harder, and there weren't enough tournaments. And if there aren't enough tournaments, it's just impossible to get your ranking back. So after the point, I sort of got to me, and I felt like I wanted to explore more things. And my wife now, my girlfriend then, she was doing an MBA, and I've always been someone who's been academically inclined growing up, and I wanted to sort of explore this side. I wanted to see, uh, you know, give it a shot, and maybe even if I wanted to get back to sports, I felt like doing an MBA might give me that sort of skill set that could add further value if I come back. So I felt like I started wanting to explore something beyond badminton. I think mid 2021 was when I sort of thought, okay, let me sort of, and I actually spoke to, I don't know if you know Viren Raskina. He's again a former India hockey captain who was an ISB alum. And I knew about it then that he was, an ISB alum when he had joined ISB. And because after that, he started this Olympic Gold Quest, which is an NGO that funds, top athletes. In fact, even briefly, even I was with them. So I knew him from then. So I just spoke to him and sort of, got his perspective. And he was also super sort of positive about this. And he said, you should go ahead with it. You should try for it. So I think that sort of again, multiple factors weighed in, and I think my wife also was very supportive, and she felt it'd be good. So yeah, I think one thing led to the other, and then I just gave my GMAT, and uh, I got shortlisted and gave my interview, and then so yeah, I think it was sort of both happened simultaneously. I mean, I wanted to explore new things, which is why I sort of decided to sort of step away from the sport because I mean eventually I had to, I think, at most I could have probably stretched it a year or two. And even then, I didn't really see myself getting where I would have ideally wanted to get back to. So, yeah, so that sort of factored in as well.
Where do you see your life headed from now? What do you want to do? This is an
Good
MBA
question.
question. MBA interview question.
Yeah, hopefully I'll have a better answer by the time, interviews start. But at this point, honestly, I'm considering multiple options. I'll probably, I mean, one option is I think, I'm considering consulting. I feel like it would sort of give me, a gateway to, even if I just do it for a couple of years, I think it'll give me a gateway, a lot of experience, a lot of corporate experience to even get back to sport later. But again, I think beyond that, I'm still not very sure about, how I would see myself maybe 5, 6 years from now. But I think, yeah, I'm somewhere winging it in that sense. But let's see.
That's great.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Ajay. You have been super candid. You have been, you've spoken with so much clarity, and I mean, it was just amazing to talk to you. This amount of self awareness, if I had in life,
Likewise, Ajay.
I would have been somewhere else. This amount of dedication, passion, yeah, drive. So,
Nah, nah, nah.
thank you so much for coming in this podcast. Yeah.
It's been a pleasure, Aditya. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thanks
So
for having me.
thanks for listening, folks. That was Ajay Jayaram, and I'm Lou, and this is Lucid.